What were Elvis's last words? His final words still continue to haunt those who knew him. His passing was a shock to the world and a shock to those who knew him on a personal level. On August 16, 1977, that would be the last day of Elvis on Earth, but a sad memory for most. In this video, we'll talk about the final words of Elvis Presley shared with his stepbrother 2 days before he passed away, but also talk about not just his last words, but last wish before his untimely passing. But before we start, welcome to the Snapshot Bliss Luxury Channel, the channel that shares cool stories of the rich and famous as well as luxury cars, watches, yachts, and other things, so be sure to subscribe to the channel. Now back to the video. It's still fresh in the minds when you see interviews with Billy Stanley, Elvis' stepbrother, the conversation he and Elvis Presley had in the last days. Now keep in mind, before Elvis passed, he had confessed he was going to make some major changes in his life. Again, this was 2 days before he died. They involved the future of his fiancée, Ginger Alden, and his plans to cut ties with his manager, Tom Parker. Going back to Elvis' stepbrother, Billy Stanley, the King had opened up to him a few days prior to Elvis' passing and talked about how the actions in his life made him become remorseful. And he spoke of how he wanted to change it all. In an interesting setup of events that led up to their serious talks, it started with Elvis when showing Billy the brand new karate knives he had. While sparring with one another in a not so serious way playing around, Stanley threw an unexpected punch at Elvis. This caused him to counterattack, hurting Stanley, but he later confirmed he wasn't bothered by it since it was a mistake. They were just playing around. Billy said, quote, "Elvis saw that he hit me, so he immediately dropped the knives, grabbed my finger, and walked me to the bathroom. We were standing by the sink facing this huge mirror. Here was Elvis making a big deal out of this, like he was going to have to do surgery or something. Meanwhile, I'm just standing there in amazement, smiling at him." Both had the understanding there was no hurtful intention in this, but Elvis's mood had quickly turned. Presley turned to Billy and asked him, quote, "Do you believe God forgives us for all our sins?" It was a question that took Stanley off guard, but Elvis knew and was reflecting on his own life since he was beginning to understand the demons in his life were getting the better of him. The downward spiral path would then become the demise of Elvis in his life, but hearing what Billy thought meant a lot to him. Stanley's response was one of those to try and console Elvis. He said, quote, "Well, yeah, I mean, we've talked about this for almost 17 years, Elvis." Elvis replied, quote, "I just wanted to hear you say that, Billy." Since he was a boy, Elvis always had his head in the Bible. His parents, being of Christian faith, were all very tied to a strong background. Stanley, who even mentions in interviews that Elvis, quote, "always bowed his head before a concert." Elvis would also say, quote, "It kind of settles my nerves, but also I want God to help bless this concert, so make it a good one." When it was help he needed, Stanley mentioned, quote, "Elvis always turned to God whenever he needed help." Billy also joked, quote, "It was quite an experience to have Elvis as your Sunday school teacher." In the days and years that have passed, Elvis continues to influence those around him. His dreams and aspirations to start new were cut short by his untimely death. If you're a fan of Elvis, be sure to check out some of our other videos in the description box below. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.